Hi,
we're the Art Apes, and we're here on a mission to help you take your art further, faster, stronger, by giving you the information and understanding of advanced art theory and how to apply it to your art today.
All right, going to start out with this quote. When the realization of actual appearances is most complete, the mind is liable to be led away by side issues connected with the things represented as real objects, instead of seeing the emotional intentions of the artist expressed through them. So, what it's saying is that when we put so much realism into a painting or drawing that it looks like a photograph, that the viewer stops being impacted by what the emotional intentions of the artist was, and instead is taken on a path unrelated to anything the artist was trying to get across.
So you're saying basically is when you're getting too much detail, somebody can completely infer a completely different meaning to your painting because it took all those extra details, say that bird you overly detailed, and inferred a completely different story to your picture.
Absolutely. Looking at the work of many Renaissance masters who used chiaroscuro, these masters recognized how much power the outline of their forms possessed. And so to their school of thinking, the outline, it was kept, and it was an important part of the picture. Michelangelo, Titian, Raphael, Leonardo, and the Venetians were all faithful to the outline as a means of holding their pictures together. Though it's got to be said that the Venetians got very close to the visual method, which was introduced later by Velázquez. Just quickly, Velázquez painted this in 1650. What a painterly treatment of the color. Just a few brushstrokes gives so much information about how the fabric felt and what it felt like. That sense of touch was recognized and masterfully explained. In this way, little by little, starting from the simple outline, art changed and added new thoughts as these ideas were discovered. Note by note, a symphony was created in technique, perspective, outline, gradation, as more and more skills and understanding of different ideas were added. We can have something crude and direct and go to the other end of the spectrum to one of grace and refinement, from the simple to the complex to anything in between. All of these additions to our visual arsenal, our visual toolbox, are not always gains. The simplicity of a Botticelli gives us an innocence, and it appeals to our imagination in a way that no other art school could really communicate.
And when you're saying innocence and simplicity, you're not necessarily talking about the like how technically simple
No,
it is,
absolutely.
like the brushwork being simple. Far from it. It seems when you're talking about these ideas they're expressing without, say, the chiaroscuro of DaVinci, that a Botticelli had all these line work and more simple.
Yeah. Well, really, if you look at Botticelli's work, you're going to see an outline of the face. And inside the face, you're not going to see like musculature like you're going to see in a Michelangelo. But Michelangelo was a sculptor. He painted like a sculptor. Botticelli, his idea was beauty was making it smooth. And it made a huge difference in the way they thought about what they were painting. So having too much realism can lead you away from this innocence. I mean, everything was rounded and smooth. There was no musculature in a Botticelli. So when the viewer is confronted by all this realism, they likely as not will stop looking at it, but will instead look through it They're looking at the realistically painted objects with the viewer's own associations, rather than the artistic intention of the picture. To those people who only judge the quality of pictures by how much it looks like a photograph, they've got to think a Botticelli picture just looks really strange.
And actually, a little anecdote on that. When we went to an art museum, some of these people, I remember hearing some kids, some younger people talking about how much different from a photograph it looked for some of these old pictures and paintings, but they still loved them. In fact, I think it stuck out more in their memory than, say, a photograph.
Yeah.
Because it can communicate the ideas of the artist rather than the viewer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good that you said that. In many books, you'll see a constant reference to primitive artistic ideas. This shouldn't be construed to mean it's lesser. In most cases, absolutely the opposite is meant. Primitive means powerful, elemental, simplicity. It means going back to the basics, the wellspring, the raw energy, the origin from which all creation can, and it does spring. Typically, when they talk about primitive, they're praising the power and the simplicity inside the design. When too much detail is placed into a picture, you're likely to eventually obscure the main idea and disturb the larger sense of design in the work.
Essentially not being able to see the forest through the trees.
Absolutely. Anyway, when we put in too much naturalistic detail, we can lose the appealing aspects of the art. From the pre-Raphaelites like Rossetti, Hunt, Millet, and later on Pierre Puvis-Chavannes.
I can never get his name right.
Yeah, well, all I think is Chavannes.
We've alienated all our French viewers.
Absolutely. There is an insistence on outline that separates them from other artists who were painting during their time. This was a new school of art. Hey, when studying different schools of art, it's usually better to start and study the first rather than the late works, so that you can find what the base driving ideas on which all that good work was built. It's easier to tease apart the essential qualities in the early examples than those that have been overlaid by more complex knowledge, which was to evolve later. The skeleton or the scaffold of the picture is more apparent and easier to see in the earlier work. As time passed, we've accumulated a wealth of information from many places and cultures.
Especially with the advent of the internet.
Oh, we're so lucky. You can cherry pick from any one of them, whether the influence springs from American, European, Japanese, Chinese, Indian, African, or any artistic inspiration you can think of. We need to select those elements which answer the inner calling that the artist needs to express. When we have so many choices, new forms, new combinations, new simplifications can be discovered. Studying the influence and discipline of line work has never been more necessary than now. We can't go back and unlearn like when the Greeks discovered a lot of the forms. These primitive forces were in danger of losing, live in line, and they live on the line. The painter will find the study of line of so much importance, and we're going to be getting into so much of this shortly. Mm-hmm. Once you look back at how the masters worked out their problems in their pieces, can you really understand the value that line gave to them?
And it also allows you, by understanding how the masters worked out their problems, it'll help you a lot in understanding how to work out your own problems, because I guarantee they've gone through the same problems at some point.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for that. Hey, an object, according to our sense of touch, has borders and edges. It's a felt thing, not a thing which you are really looking at with its light and dark appearance. The way an outline drawing appeals and satisfies this psychological idea we have of objects that we see, it fleshes out our sight and instinctively gives us an elemental and powerful energy to your work. that when you incorporate how something feels inside your artwork, it doesn't matter what the medium is, it doesn't even matter if it's abstract or realistic, but having an abstraction, but still including those essential qualities of the objects you're abstracting.
You know, especially with line, you're not playing with color. A great example, which we'll get into later, is Master Line, and now I'm blanking on him.
Yeah.
Ingres. People will tell you, by the way, that it's pronounced differently. Don't listen. Don't listen. They are the French supremacists.
Okay, let's. Okay.
Cutting that out, editor.
Bad monkey.
Okay.
Bad monkey.
But Ingres can show you qualities of cloth in his just this one. He has a great example, which I'm sure we'll get into later, of masterwork line.
Yeah.
That can show soft fabric versus hair versus. Trust us. Because we know you, the viewer, are not only handsome, but intelligent.
Absolutely.
And since you're so handsome and intelligent, thank you for watching this video. And we look forward to...
Hey, thanks for joining. All right, we've got more information coming. Hit subscribe, ring the bell. You know what to do. Do. Yes.
I have a rock in this episode.
Yeah, he's learning to use tools again. You know.
You said you were proud. And being that smart, handsome fellows and fellowesses you are, be sure to click that subscribe to get notified of when our next video is. When it gets up, if you click the bell icon or whatever YouTube has decided nowadays to get notified.
Hey, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Hit like, hit subscribe, ring the bell if you like. Thumbs up work, thumbs down do too. Have a great one.